Hi, I'm Pamela Althoff, and I am a state senator from the 32nd District, which encompasses most of McHenry County and a little portion of Lake. We are here at the Washburn home in Galena, Illinois. This is the 8th in our series of 12 visiting historic sites that are run by the state of Illinois, pointing out to you not only the importance historically, their significance, but also pointing out how wonderful it is to have these sites in local areas where they're important to the economic viability of the community. With me today, again, is Terry Miller. He is the site manager, and we're going to walk through the house now. Terry, this is an unbelievably elegant home compared to the home that we were just in.
It is.
And before we talk about the important artifacts and pieces that are in the parlor room, tell me or provide me a little bit of history about how Congressman Washburne fits into Galena, as well as how he fits within the framework of Lincoln and Grant.
Sure. Actually, Washburne was born in Maine. He moved out here in 1840. He was an attorney, so he moved out here, started his law practice here. Eventually met his wife very shortly thereafter, Adele Gratiot. They were married. Built this house in 1846. It was 1.5 stories. Then about 1860, they almost tripled it to about 5,000 square feet. Yeah, he was an attorney, ran for Congress in 1852 and won. Was there for 18 years. And he was a good friend of Lincoln's. Actually, he was a confidant of Lincoln's. He actually was very helpful in Lincoln being elected to be president of the United States. Again, they were very good friends. Congressman Washburne and his three brothers actually started the Republican Party, and so Lincoln was the first man to be elected in the Republican Party. And again, those three men, Grant, Lincoln, and Washburne, were very helpful in ending the Civil War at that particular time. When Grant was elected in 1868, he appointed Washburne to be the Secretary of State first. Mm-hmm. He held that office for just a short time, about 10 days, and then Grant appointed him to be the to be the Ambassador of France, which he held that for the entire Grant term.
Which was a very important position at the time, those relationships,
right.
Yes. But tell me now, too, there are some original pieces in this room that belong to the Washburn family.
Yes. Yeah, actually the mirrors in both parlors. This is the official parlor, sort of office for the congressman, and then in the family parlor, another mirror back there. Again, original. As I was telling you earlier, just about a month ago, we acquired a Duncan Fife couch that's right now being reupholstered in period cloth, and we think we're going to get back another week or two. But Duncan Fife was one of the main manufacturers back in the 1840s, so we think we actually bought that for his wife. We're not certain on the details, but we know it was here in the 1840s, so we're extremely happy to get that back here.
And how did you get it back?
The great-grandson, who's 92 years old, lives in California. He lived in Colorado most of his life, but has entered a nursing home, so he wanted to make sure that this got back to where it belonged, to the Washburn House, where it originated from, so we're very happy.
And that actually happens much more frequently than people realize, is that people get to a certain point in their life and they want those pieces to come back to their original location.
Exactly, and we're so happy to receive any of those artifacts.
We had talked as we walked into now basically the family parlor that one of the most important positions that Congressman Washburne had held thereafter during the Grant administration was that of Ministry of France.
Yes.
And behind we have a piece that would have been very iconic at that particular time.
Mm-hmm. It's called a Napoleonic clock. So we're pretty happy to have that. People that have knowledge of France and stuff, I mean, they adore this. It's very detailed here. They get up here and look at it very closely here. So we're happy to get this. We have about a dozen French artifacts throughout the house to depict his tenure as Minister to France.
Nice. And behind us is the actual beautiful picture of Galena as it looked like back in the 1840s?
1854, actually. 54. Yeah. This is Route 20 here going by. Before it was called Route 20. It was a dirt road. And this is Congressman Washburn's house right here. You can see it's not how it looks today. It was just, this was a story and a half. In 1860, they enlarged it to be about 3 times.
And we talked to two. You can see here, this is Galena's typical topography with the many hills and various levels.
Mm-hmm. You can kind of see the river going. You'll see a steamboat here. You can kind of see the river going down through there. It's and then a lot of our buildings here on Commerce Street and Main Street just beyond that.
And also in the room is a picture of Mrs. Washburn. Mm-hmm. And you had told me there was a wonderful story about her background and her history.
She was the first white child born in the settlement here. She used to play with the Native Americans all the time here in the settlement. So she became very close to the Native Americans. She actually collected 4 George Catlin paintings. So we have those on display in the next room here. I'll point those out to you. But yeah, she was a real admirer of Native Americans and what they had to go through and the treatment they got through the years. She was very sad by some of the things that happened to them later on in life.
It's wonderful, again, a woman's influence on her very powerful husband to set policy.
Exactly. Yeah, she was very influential in him.
So now we're in the library, and in my estimation, one of the most important pieces in the room is actually the picture of this room on the night that Grant was elected for the first time. And you see both President Grant as well as Congressman Washburne in the picture, as well as other, I would assume, prominent individuals.
Sure. We have a listing of all the individuals. There was a wonderful detailed article in the Galena Gazette at that time of who they all were. They actually hired a man from Chicago, and that's him sitting over here, for the Western Union, bringing in all the information from all the other states. And
even here is the mirror that we were talking about. It's seen here in the picture over here, right, with the marble fireplace, which is right behind us. And you were telling me that mirror was in several different pieces and had to be put together so it could be displayed.
Pieces. Malcolm Brown in Springfield with our agency, he spent many hours piecing that together and then re-gilding that. So we're very happy to have that back in the spot that it's been in for 150 years. So we're happy to have that back here.
And the last piece I just want to draw some attention to is what you had pointed out before. Behind me is a French tea caddy, they call it. Yeah. And that was something we purchased later on also. Again, a French artifact depicting Washburn as being the ambassador to France. These are 3 George Catlin paintings that Mrs. Washburn had obtained through the years. The top one is Chief Keokuk, who would have been in this particular area, then his wife, and the Sock and Fox tribal dance on the bottom there. That's wonderful to know. So, Terry, we find ourselves in the dining room, and there are some pieces in this room that are original to the Washburn family.
There are.
One of importance is the picture here we have.
That's correct, yeah. It's a Tiffany, we think it was a wedding gift, but we're not totally sure on that. But her initials are right here in the front here, too. You can kind of see them on the front there. Yeah.
Lovely. And there is a picture of Mrs. Washburn. This is Adele behind us.
It is.
So, obviously, place of honor here in this room. And again, you told me there are some pieces that again would depict his time as Minister of France in France.
Yeah, you had the candelabras and the apron there, and behind me the urns are all French artifacts here, and that we're happy to add to this house. But we took the liberty of just getting things that were very French and putting them in the house to depict his tenure as the Minister of France.
So, Terry, we're in the kitchen, and there are some items here of some interest. Can you talk about those for me, please?
Sure. Well, this bowl, we're very happy to have this large mixing bowl. That actually belonged to the Washburn here. So we got it back about 10 years ago. A very prominent family here had bought that from the Washburns, or I don't know if they had an auction or what, but we were able to get that back. So good documentation also that it actually belonged to the Washburn House, so that's nice. This work table is pretty cool, too, I think. These actually, they would put flour or sugar or cornmeal or whatever in these drawers here. Another one back here. It's called a work table, a workstation table.
We have the drop leaf.
I know there's a lot of drop leaf tables today, but this was just purposely made for kitchen use here, which, again, very useful. And they would have always had their staff cooking. Mrs. Washburn never cooked much. They always had a lot of staff here.
Certainly, and we talked about that on the 3rd floor. There were actual rooms for the staff to stay, so they were live-in, right?
Right, yeah, they would stay up there.
The stove?
Very typical stove. It was not original to the Washburn House here, but it's out of the 1870s stove, so we're happy to have that. Kind of a cool thing here. We didn't want to put more heat ducts and air ducts in, so that's why these are open here. All the heat, all the air conditioner now comes through the actual chimneys, so in the wintertime, you can actually come over here and feel the heat coming out like the stove's actually working.
Well, again, thank you. I think that kind of concludes our tour of the Washburn home. I would encourage people to come to Galena. There's a lot more to see. You mentioned a few other historic sites that are available. So this is not a one-night stay. This is more like a 2-night stay minimum.
Because it's not just the historic homes. There's so many other things to do. We have so much to offer here in Galena. But obviously the historic homes are very important. We'd like to have you get a little history while you're here.
I'm very grateful again for the history, but I'm going to do a little bit of shopping before I go back to McHenry as well. Exactly. Yeah. So again, thank you so much for spending the time.
Thanks for coming. It's a pleasure to meet you.
You can find more information about all the Illinois historic sites on their website, which is illinoishistory.gov.